the element of someone who is being quote unquote canceled and something scandalous from their past comes to light and people say, well, if you did this 20 years ago, whatever you did now is more likely to be true, which that can be the case, but they could be completely unrelated. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Film Buds podcast. This is episode number 600, and my name is Henry. Finally made it to 600. Thank you to all those who have been listening, new and old. Thank you. Pretty crazy that we have made it this far. Here's to 600 more. This time around, I'm going to be tackling the 2025 film After the Hunt, and then I'll be counting down my top 10 cancel culture movies. Should be a really interesting discussion, and then we'll be doing other stuff I watched, the normal stuff. Thanks again for being here. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, like, follow, all the things. Catch us on YouTube if you're not there already. But let's go ahead and get into After the Hunt, and do have a clip, so take a listen.
I don't feel comfortable having this conversation with you anymore.
Not everything is supposed to make you comfortable, Maggie. Not everything is supposed to be a lukewarm bath for you to sink into until you fall asleep and drown.
And there are no rewards in death for suffering as much as possible in life.
You've constructed a life that hides your accidental privilege, neediness, desperate desire to impress. At least I have the self-respect to be obvious about what it is that I want. But you, it's all lies.
All right. So After the Hunt came out in 2025, like I said. It is directed by Luca Guadagnino, who also did Challengers, Bones and All, Queer, and it stars Julia Roberts, Ayo Edebiri, Andrew Garfield, Michael Stuhlbarg, Chloe Sevigny. And the synopsis is, a college professor finds herself at a personal and professional crossroads when a star pupil levels an accusation against one of her colleagues and a dark secret from her own past threatens to come to light. I only saw this one when it came out on Amazon for streaming. I was curious about it. I love Luca Guadagnino. I was a little shocked when it first came out and was making rounds at festivals. It got pretty mixed reviews, which is very uncommon for Guadagnino. It was a massive box office bomb. It had a budget of around 70 or 80 million, which just seems insane for the kind of movie that it is. But it only made around 10 million, so pretty big flop there. This is also written by a first-time screenwriter. It was her first script out of college, I think. And that's also sort of different for Guadagnino. He usually works with the same people every time. It is one that has grown on me a little bit. I do think it is my least favorite of Guadagnino's movies to date. Partly because, and I did get a comment about this recently, of people saying that I keep on doing movies that are just sort of mid, like okay movies. But I'm trying to pick ones that have the most interesting discussion. I'm not just picking average to poor films because I like hating on them. Hopefully that comes through. Sorry if it didn't. But this is one of those where the discussion, I think, is a lot more interesting than actually watching the movie itself. I mean, it looks good. It's well acted. It seems to be trying a little too hard to make a point or too many points. And by the end, I'm not sure exactly what it's trying to say. The movie starts out, in minor spoilers here, there's this young college student played by the actress from The Bear, who I think is very good. She idolizes Julia Roberts, who's this big-time professor at a university. And then Andrew Garfield is another professor in that same group. The student accuses Garfield of sexual misconduct after a party, a get-together. And then Julia Roberts is in the sort of triangle of it all, having to say, okay, is this girl actually telling the truth, or is she saying it because she has a vendetta against this guy? And that gets into the really big discussions in the film of cancel culture completely ruining someone's reputation. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. Someone can say, hey, you sexually assaulted me. And that, in the day and age of digital media, that's there forever. You're never going to truly escape that. Julia Roberts is dealing with, I like this student of mine, but I have my own problems. I have my own past, but I'm also friends, good colleagues with Andrew Garfield. And so who do I team with? Where does that put me in the spotlight? My reputation at that school. I think it also touches on the difference between generations and how they view this kind of situation. One generation may take it more seriously while another doesn't, or maybe vice versa. There's the idea of a institution, a very highly regarded institution, suddenly having to defend itself and having to say, no, you can trust us. We hire the best people. It's safe here. There's the after effects of trauma, whether it's sexual assault or something else, and how that shapes someone's life, their personality in the years to come. And also one thing that, it's difficult to really find the right line. And I guess that's what makes the conversation so interesting. But the idea of a mentorship between an adult and, it could be two adults too, but whether it's an adult and a child or an older adult and a more like college age student, and how close can you get with that person in terms of helping them along through life without it becoming potentially dangerous or strange to the outsider. One thing I really did not like, and I think overall the score is good. It's by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, who I love, and they've worked a lot with Guadagnino. I hated actively the ticking clock that happens every so often. It starts from the very beginning. It was so loud. It was so grating. I understand the point of it. It's meant to be like a kind of like a ticking time bomb, I guess, as to something bad happening. But I think they could have chosen a different sound or style to incorporate that, because that just, to be real, I just wanted to skip through those sections or mute it until it was over. With Guadagnino being quite successful at this point, very highly regarded, he is one of those filmmakers, and I don't blame him. Most of his movies are fairly long. They're between 215, 230. And I think in this case, and in Queer, his most recent film, they did not need to be 2 hours and 20 minutes long. I think both of them could have been an hour 50 and still be very good. But it feels very inert, a little repetitive in terms of the discussions being had. And even just the narrative itself seems a little fragmented. I think it's both a good and a bad thing, more so just frustrating that by the end, you don't know if it is actually true or not, and everyone just has to move on. I did read that Guadagnino changed the race of the college student from being white to black, which is an interesting decision. There's a very good argument between Julia Roberts and Ayo Edebiri in a parking lot towards the end, as well as when more of Julia Roberts' dark past comes to light and suddenly she's this media fixation at the school, no matter where she goes. And there's doubts about her keeping her job, amongst other things, and her marriage is very shaky. It already was at the beginning, but now, because of all these things coming to light, it's even worse. 3.5 out of 5. All right, well, let's move on to my top 10 list of cancel culture movies. So some of these films are dealing specifically with the Me Too movement, while others came before that and are just simply dealing with the media canceling someone out and saying, hey, you're done, you did this, or you may have done this, you're out of here, and everyone turns on them no matter what. As always, let me know what you think of my list. Let me know your favorites, your least favorites. Number 10 is Doubt with Amy Adams, Meryl Streep, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, which is based off a play about this Catholic school, a very strict school, and one of the teachers is accused of misconduct with one of the young students, so being a pedophile. And you could relate it to After the Hunt. It deals with similar ideas. It's a very solid movie. I know some people just think it's incredible. It's not there for me yet. Amazing performances. It is a single location film of sorts, so that might be a draw for some people. Really, one of the only things that brought it down was the pacing. It's not that long, but something about it, I was kind of struggling to always stay invested. Maybe rewatch would help that, but regardless, a very solid film. Number 9 is Richard Jewell by Clint Eastwood, and it tells the true story of the titular character. He was this guard who helped prevent this terrorist attack, or at least making it worse than it would have been. And then suddenly, because of where he was, who he talked to. He's accused of being a part of it, and he has to prove himself innocent. It was the big breakout role for Paul Walter Hauser, who's gone on to be in a lot of big films ever since. Really good actor. One of Clint Eastwood's better recent films. He's up and down in terms of directorial efforts, but I thought this one was very well-rounded, very compelling. Number 8 is I, Tonya with Margot Robbie. This was also one of her big breakout films right after she'd been in Suicide Squad, and love her across the board. She's amazing. This is the true story of Tonya Harding, who sabotaged this other skater. It's really ever since become this very notorious moment in sports and is referenced and parodied a lot. It's a very interesting biopic, very good performances, and despite the very negative view of this person, I still think it paints an interesting portrait of her to where you're at least interested to learn more about her. Number 7 is The Hunt from 2012, not to be confused with the Blumhouse film. This has Mads Mikkelsen, great actor, who is a beloved kindergarten teacher, and because of a very innocent, off-the-cuff lie by one of his students, he's accused of sexual misconduct, and he has to prove to his family, to everyone in the town, that this was not true and it was a lie. I think maybe because it's a European film, not English language, it's not had as big of an audience as I think it deserves, but it's definitely one of Mads Mikkelsen's best performances. Number 6 is Bombshell with Charlize Theron, Nicole Kidman, also Margot Robbie, about the Me Too movement in the Fox News network. And it's a very, I think, still a unique perspective, because usually with films that deal with the far right, Hollywood oftentimes will make it more satire, more comedy. But unlike them, in this case, you're following some of the controversial women, still today very controversial, like Megyn Kelly, who are dealing with these situations from the men in the higher up parts of the organization. Number 5 is Tar, an amazing performance by Cate Blanchett. She plays this EGOT Symphony Orchestra conductor, very well renowned. And then she has things from her past come to light. One thing about this, so I went in fairly blank to it. I thought the entire time, because of how strong the writing, the direction, the acting was, how biographical it felt, I thought that this was a real person. So by the end, I looked up who is Lydia Tarr, and it was fictional. I don't know if anyone else had that effect. Maybe I'm just an idiot, but it does a good job of commenting on both sides of cancel culture, like someone in a higher up position being canceled, but then also, hey, you're a celebrity, you make us money, you're well regarded, you're probably going to be okay. Just give it some time and you can move on. While other times, some people in lesser positions are not able to do that. Number 4 is Irrational Man by Woody Allen, which is ironic considering of all the canceled people in Hollywood, Woody Allen is definitely at the top. But I think regardless of that, this is a very underrated film, one of Woody Allen's best, a very underrated Joaquin Phoenix performance. But it's about a very radical philosophy teacher at a university, and he strikes up a relationship with a student. And even though it's not truly dealing with someone being canceled, there are those discussions of, what if someone finds out? We're both okay with this, but this is not good for my career. This could ruin your life. Number 3 is Dream Scenario, the A24 film with Nicolas Cage. This is feels very A24, I think in a good way. But Nicolas Cage, people suddenly start seeing him in their dreams all across the world, even if they don't know him. And some people have good visions, some people have bad visions, and everyone has their own perception. And more so, he becomes hated and hated and hated as opposed to being loved. Nicolas Cage, I love him. He's definitely hit and miss sometimes with his choices, but this is definitely one of his best over the last decade or so. Number 2 is May, December with Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore, partly based off a true story of a woman in her, I think, 30s who struck up a relationship with someone in their early teens, somewhere around there, and that's played by Julianne Moore. And then Natalie Portman is a actress who's playing her in a biopic, so she starts to come around her house and she wants to know everything about her, to be like her, so she gets the role, quote unquote, right. And the film has a lot of different things going on. I think it's amazing across the board. But Julianne Moore's character, now having been in this relationship for many, many years now, is living in an area where everyone knows her. She went to prison for this. But it also deals with Natalie Portman getting a little too close to that character and that situation. And then number 1 is Gone Girl by David Fincher. Whenever someone mentions cancel culture in film, this is always the one that comes up. It preluded the Me Too movement, and I think speaks to a lot of different facets of cancel culture, but in a very entertaining and complex way. It's one of David Fincher's better films. It's one of Ben Affleck's better performances as well. And that's my list. Let me know if you disagree, if you agree, whatever. Would love to hear from you out there. All right, well, I can end off with some stuff I watched. Not a whole lot, but a few things. I watched The Bride, the new Maggie Gyllenhaal directed film about the Bride of Frankenstein, but it's I guess you could relate it to Joker Folie à Deux, which I think is better than this, but reviews were very mixed for this one. Didn't really know what to expect. I liked it. Maybe that's a crazy take. I think it's definitely flawed. The tone and the style is a little too all over the place sometimes, but Jessie Buckley is amazing in it. Christian Bale is great. Great makeup. A lot of interesting ideas and a very new take for the Bride of Frankenstein. Have never really seen a story like this before for her. I rewatched The American with George Clooney, based off a novel about a lone assassin who goes to Italy on not really a vacation, but he gets a job and he ends up getting involved with this woman, this local woman, and he has to decide between continuing this job, the dangers of possibly getting out of this profession, and his affection for her. It's not for everyone. If you like the David Fincher film, The Killer, I think you'd like this one. It's very quiet. It's not a James Bond film. It's not a John Wick film, nothing like that. It's very, very understated, but it's grown on me a lot over the years, and I think it's one of George Clooney's best films. I rewatched One Battle After Another with Leo DiCaprio, won Best Picture this year, and I liked it even more this time. I think it's amazing. Leo is so good in this. There's so much going on. There's so many interesting ideas, and it all works, I think, perfectly. Like, there's nothing I would really change about the movie at all. It's really worth a watch if you haven't seen it. And that is about it, I think, for the show. That's all I got. Once again, thank you to everyone out there for 600 episodes. Love being here. I hope you guys stick around. Thank you to our new subscribers. Really appreciate that, and hope you enjoyed it even half as much as I did. And I'll see you next time, y'all.